They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everyone. I'm Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some part of your day to spend it with us. Hopefully, it'll be worth your while, and I think this week it's going to be. You can follow us along pretty much anywhere you get podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon. Follow us along on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmerz Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go to thebenchwarmers.com to find all news, notes, and all things Benchwarmerz. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. Big show coming up a little bit later. We're bringing back our NFL segment, our original Benchwarmers NFL segment called Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, which essentially is a true-false. We'll make a series of statements and see how we each react to the other statements. We have a website spotlight that also focuses on the 2016 NFL draft, which is going to be interesting, so stay tuned for that. We have to talk a lot of NBA. It's the regular season's coming to a somewhat unceremonious close. There's some interesting things there, but not we'll see. But this week in sports is how we kick off the show every week. And Jose, not a whole lot going on this week, but we do have some interesting things. The biggest, although it's arguably the smallest, is Tim Tebow. Yes, that Tim Tebow, after a 9-year hiatus, has signed a 1-year deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I've been struggling with this a little bit. I think that right off the bat, it's like, why didn't he try to do this 9 years ago? I feel like it's a little too late, and I feel like Tim's. I feel like there's more at play here. I feel like he's going to end up being on the coaching staff. What was your knee-jerk reaction to seeing Tim Tebow signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I literally just clicked to the next story. I really didn't care that much, honestly. It is interesting that he's been gone. I didn't realize he'd been gone for so long. That's the one thing. I didn't realize he'd been gone for so long from the NFL. This obviously coincides with his failed. He attempted to become a professional baseball player. Didn't work out. I don't want to call it a failed attempt. He did make a minor league roster, and he did have some success as a minor leaguer, but what didn't really pan out to the level he wanted to. Saw an opportunity where his old coach is in the NFL, and maybe saw a path back into the path back to relevancy. I guess he's just eating a little humble pie now and say, hey, maybe I wasn't ever really a quarterback and I should have played tight end. I think it's okay to admit that you're wrong and try to make amends for it. And maybe that's what's happening right now.
And Des Bryant, actually, I saw this. Des pretty good on Twitter. I'll give it to him. Des tweeted shortly there after the announcement that Tim Tebow is going to be signing with the Jaguars. Des Bryant on his Twitter account, quote, "So Tebow hasn't played an NFL game in damn near a decade, and it's that simple. No hate, but you got to be kidding me," unquote. So I understand where Des is a little upset. I've long since been saying that Des would be a fantastic tight end if he bulked up just a little bit, because he's always been a big guy. He's got good hands. Obviously, his top end speed isn't there with the Achilles tear that he had a couple years ago and just age overall. But I would much rather have Des Bryant as my tight end than Tim Tebow. But with a brand new quarterback and a generational talent that we've been told over and over and over again, I think Tebow. I think the benefit of having Tebow on your team is more intangible than tangible because, from a skill set, there's nothing that Trevor Lawrence is going to learn from Tim Tebow except what not to do. But from a leadership standpoint, I think that he might be a good role model, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's possible. He could have just hired him onto his coaching staff, though. Like there could have been a shorter path. You don't have to have him sign up for a team as a tight end. Hey, I'm a failed quarterback. I can tell you how to be a good quarterback. Like, I don't. If you bring him in as the quarterback's coach, that's probably holds a little bit more weight. And as far as Des Bryant, I feel him a little bit, but at the same time, listen, he turned down a $30 million deal from the Ravens, and I believe it was, I'm not sure, I think it was about 2018.
Yeah,
and,
17, 18, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's got no one to blame but himself that he's not in the NFL right now. Because he could have taken that deal, and I mean, who knows? But then he didn't take the deal. He tears his ACL or whatever. He had all these injuries after that.
Yep.
You know, he blew his opportunity. And it's not like Tim Tebow was out of the NFL because of injury. He was out of the NFL because he couldn't play, right? And so then he went to do something else. He couldn't play quarterback. Right. No one ever denied his ability as an athlete. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for Dez Bryant, who turned down $30 million because he thought it was worth more and found out that he wasn't.
Yeah, and the thing to note of this is that Tebow is signed to the 90-man roster. So if he makes it to the 53-man roster when the team makes their cuts, then maybe Dez has a leg to stand on in terms of being a little upset by this. But overall, I mean, as a bigger kind of broader lesson here, I think that the NFL is not unlike every other business on the planet. Urban Meyer owes Tim Tebow. I mean, that's just what, they live like 3 doors down from each other. They live literally in the same street in Jacksonville, Florida. So, Tebow has been trying to be, in the NFL for a long time. He obviously tried the baseball nonsense, and that kind of didn't really work out. But Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow helped make Urban Meyer when they were at Florida together. I mean, he skyrocketed Urban Meyer's chops and cred in the sports world. So it's not surprising that now that Urban Meyer is in the NFL, Tim Tebow's kind of like, hey, man, remember when we won all that stuff back in college? You think maybe you could get me over here? I think that it's just a lesson in life that sometimes it's not how good you are, it's just who you know that gets you where you want to be. That's just life. I mean, you can complain about it all you want, but that's never going to change ever in any avenue of life. It's just not.
You stated that perfectly. I have nothing to add. It's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Who you know is perfect. It helps you so much. So
the only other thing I can manage to say is that, honestly, if you look at the roster, the Jaguars' tight ends are
that's what we're talking about
not very good to begin with. So it's not like Tim Tebow he's not going into the Chiefs locker room or the 49ers locker room and saying, all right, guys, I'm going to be the starting tight end over George Kittle or Travis Kelce. No, the Jaguars have 5 tight ends on their roster right now. Jose, if I gave you $1,000, I don't think that you could name a single one of these guys.
Well, I don't want to take your $1,000 because we actually played this game last week where I asked you to name.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
And so I think James.
I rescind my oath. James O'Shaughnessy is the big name. Luke Farrell, Ben Ellefson,
Manhurt, I think, or
Chris Manhertz.
Yeah, Manhertz,
hilarious. And Tyler Davis.
Yeah, and that's a good point. There's certainly an opportunity in that, whether it's Tim Tebow or whomever, there's an opportunity to win that tight end job. So why not bring in extra competition to see? Hey, maybe Tim Tebow is the best player at tight end on that team.
Just for some context, James O'Shaughnessy is their leading tight end. He had 88 catches in his total of 6 seasons with Kansas City and Jacksonville.
Wow.
88 catches in 6 seasons. Just to put it in context, Travis Kelce, who you might have heard of, had 105 catches last season alone. So there is some competition to be had in that tight end locker room. It's not a set thing. So, I mean, to be fair to Tebow, he is in a town where the notoriety is going to be his to be had because he brings a circus with him everywhere he's went, even back when he was playing. And I don't know what his hands look like. I don't know if he can. I don't think that he's going to be able to block a guy like Myles Garrett. I mean, not that anybody really can, but it's got some potential to work out. And the other kind of indirect benefit to this that I was thinking about is that, Trevor Lawrence has been the second coming of the football Christ for 3 years now. And I think with Tebow there, he could actually be a good thing that he takes away some of that spotlight and takes it off of Trevor Lawrence so he's not quite center stage. He's sharing the stage with somebody who has obviously been in the spotlight pretty much his entire football career, or sports career. So there are some things I could see that make sense here. I would also be upset if I was Des Bryant, but I'd be upset about a lot of things if I was Des Bryant. So
there's nothing to lose. I think, but at the end of the day, there's nothing to lose from the Jaguars or Urban Meyer by bringing Tim Tebow in and giving him a shot. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, it should be interesting to say the least. In other news, moving on with This Week in Sports on the Benchwarmers, Eric Fisher, also former number 1 pick in the 2013 draft by the Kansas City Chiefs. He was released some weeks ago after getting injured. It was kind of an interesting story and questionable, but not against the rules in the NFL. But he signed on with the Indianapolis Colts. He signed a 1-year, $9.4 million deal, and presumably he's going to be okay. He seems like he's coming along, but this is interesting to me because while Eric Fisher's not what he once was, I feel like I don't think I would label him a bust, but as a number 1 pick, the expectations are so high, even for an offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he lived up to that expectation, but he's been very good over the course of his career. Now, combine his talent with a guy like Quint Nelson, who the Colts took 4 years ago? Mm-hmm. And he was Quint Nelson was first team All-Pro his rookie year, so he's also an offensive lineman. In case you weren't sure what position he played, so I think that this all is very good news for Carson Wentz because he's going to have more protection than he's ever seen in his entire career. And it's exactly what you said with Tim Tebow to me. It's just it can't hurt. It's $9 million. It's a 1-year deal. There's very little at risk. Yeah,
this is a win-win. The Colts beef up that offensive line. They have Carson Wentz. They have Jonathan Taylor. They have T.Y. Hilton back and Paris Campbell. And I can't remember the receiver they just drafted last year for some reason. It's just slipping my mind. But either way, they have
T.Y. Hilton and they have Michael Pittman.
Yes, and Paris Campbell from the year before that.
Yeah.
They have a solid offense in place. You're just adding a former Pro Bowl offensive lineman to a great offensive line. And from Eric Fisher's standpoint, this is a 1-year deal. Presumably, if you have a good season, you can potentially get a long-term contract or a longer-term contract next year when the salary cap undoubtedly goes back up, assuming that we're out of this COVID nightmare. But, that just, most likely the cap's going to go up and he can get more money. So this is just a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, I think it bodes well for the Colts as an overall organization. They're just very quietly, they're just building and building and building. And
I was a year early on them, I think. I was a year early on them, maybe. Yeah, they were my dark horse team last year.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers was kind of the wild card there. It's how much did he have left? And honestly, if you remember that playoff game against, was it the Bills, right? They were the better team on the field. They just made some very poor decisions down the stretch that cost them the game, but they were outplaying the Buffalo Bills in that playoff game. They very easily could have and probably should have won that game. So this year, I in terms of career, I think that obviously Phillip Rivers is better than Carson Wentz, but I think as terms of ceiling, Carson Wentz could outperform, what you would have gotten, at best case scenario with Phillip Rivers last year.
He better outperform with the draft capital on him, and they went out and traded for him. He's back with Frank Reich. I don't want to hear any excuses. He better outperform Phillip Rivers. It wasn't so long ago that he was in the discussion for a top 10, if not top 5 quarterback, and it just feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. So he better be better than Phillip Rivers was.
He has no excuses not to be, honestly, at this point. So, but we'll see how it ends up for the Colts. This isn't really, this is kind of just a thing to add to the news in sports this past week. Kenny Mayne, longtime ESPN anchor, he's moving on after 27 years with ESPN. He called himself a salary cap casualty, I guess, because he got asked to take a pay cut, and he obviously didn't want to, so he's moving on. And, I just wanted to give a nod to Kenny Mayne. Kenny Mayne he kind of carried the torch after, Dan Patrick was there, but then after Keith Olbermann left, Kenny Mayne kind of stepped up. And I still remember to this day, he's one of, not that he's a big reason, but he's one of the reasons that was focusing on this as sort of a potential career path. And just
Yeah.
I remember in SportsCenter, just the one phrase he had, it was in baseball, and I forget who it was. I think it was during the home run race with McGuire and Sosa, and he just, one of his announcements, he was talking about a home run that got hit. He goes, back, it's not coming back. It hit a guy in the back. just his witty, dry, sarcastic sense of humor just always made me laugh, even when I wasn't expecting to.
Yeah, I was definitely a big fan of Kenny Mayne's. It's actually just this story of them letting go, because I feel like they've been letting people go a lot recently over the last few years, and I feel like ESPN has started shifting as a network, and maybe it's to the benefit for them, I don't know, but I started losing interest in ESPN as a network, I would say, when they started shifting their focus to like hosting the football games and hosting the basketball games rather than reporting on them. Yeah. And when you and I were growing up, we were in high school, it was like literally, were you watching SportsCenter last night? And then we would talk about SportsCenter all day. Like that was what we would do literally almost every single day.
Yep.
Probably not even only in high school, like maybe for like 10 straight years. We were just talking about SportsCenter all the time. And at some point, ESPN became like, I don't know. It's just like now we're hosting the game. Now the games are on our channels, and it feels like since then they've been cutting people. They've been losing money, and I guess you can't turn back now. But it's just an unfortunate shame that they keep losing guys like Kenny Mayne and then Dan Patrick and others as well. And it's just keep going, keep losing people.
And the one thing, ESPN is not to get on a tirade about ESPN. They're obviously everything we hope we could be on this show, but it just seems like it's a lot of empty headlines that they do. Like if you remember, there was a big to do about Adam Schefter on draft day saying this whole thing about ESPN, and he dropped this idea that Aaron Rodgers was unhappy. And they framed it in a way that it was breaking news. Mm-hmm. And then when pushed on it, Schefter kind of was like, well, no, it was just the accumulation of all of these little tidbits that would have heard from this person, that from team sources, from league sources, blah, blah, blah. And it just happened to be on draft day. And it kind of just struck me as a little disingenuous, because while it may have been true, you're forcing this, it's like it's forced attention, because you're saying this thing about Aaron Rodgers potentially leaving on draft night, which you let people connect their own dots and think, oh wow, something's going to happen tonight. So anybody that was even unsure about watching the draft was locked in, and it just felt so contrived that I don't know. I was very upset by it. I did not like, because when push came to shove, it was just this kind of empty, hollow thing, but. Yeah. All of that is to say that I agree with everything you just said about ESPN. So
yeah.
Great network. They do a lot of things well, but they could stand to
just go back to like 20 more years. But maybe listen, we're not the ones making decisions and making billions of dollars. So
correct.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. But Kenny Mayne, I'm sure he will pop up somewhere else, probably on his own show, and be very happy about it. So thank you, Kenny Mayne, for doing what you've done for the last 27 years. Finally, this week in sports, speaking of something that's not been done in over 27 years, Russell Westbrook this week broke Oscar Robertson's record for career triple-doubles. He posted his 182nd career triple-double, which is one more than Oscar Robertson's 181. And this I don't know, this sparked a whole, I had a whole conversation with myself about Russell Westbrook the other day. And Jose, before I want to just ask you, in terms of, before I ask my question, what was your instant reaction to Russell Westbrook and seeing the news that he broke Oscar Robertson's all-time career triple-doubles?
My instant reaction was just kind of a little bit of just, it was a mixed feeling. One, I've also, he's, my first thought was a very cynical one, where it was just like, he's kind of just a ball hog of sorts. He's very inefficient, and fine. He accumulates stats. But after I thought about it more, I remember, and we just went back to high school. I remember talking to you about Oscar Robertson's triple-double record. People who don't know me, I've been obsessed with sports stats. I was much more obsessed when I was in high school and I had a lot of time to read sports almanacs and things like that. But
pre-marriage, pre-family.
Yeah.
Pre-social media, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember just looking at this, like, how is anyone going to get 181 or 82 triple-doubles? And we would marvel at how Oscar Robertson had averaged a triple-double in a season. And here goes a guy who averaged a triple-double for 3 consecutive seasons.
Yeah.
And I want to take a moment to really appreciate what Westbrook has accomplished in his career. And I want to talk about what he is rather than he's not. He's a very good and at times great NBA basketball player who maybe got caught in the wrong era. I kind of look at him like a Carmelo Anthony and players whose skill sets don't really mesh well with the current NBA game. That doesn't mean that Westbrook isn't a great player, and I think is a remarkable accomplishment.
Yeah, Westbrook is he plays hard. I will grant him that. He's not a good shooter.
No.
He's good enough, and he plays hard enough where he is a force to be reckoned with. But I don't know how to. I don't have exact stats to back this up, but obviously Russell Westbrook has only been successful at compiling stats. He is not one. They made it to the finals when he was on the Thunder with that infamous, famously talented team with Durant and Harden. And then after that, I mean, he stayed around for a while and they were okay. They didn't really do much. And then he went to play with Harden and they did all right, not as well as Harden did with Chris Paul. And so it just seems like he has this sort of track record, almost like a Carmelo Anthony, where it's like he puts up these individual accolades and stats that are just impressive in a vacuum. But it just seems to me that there should be more onus put on not just how many points you score, but when you score them. That should matter. And I know that there's a million there's more stats than we can even possibly name, but that is not one of them. Where it's maybe it is. I don't even know. I wouldn't even know how to look it up, even if it was. But the importance of the points you're scoring, or the rebounds you get, or the assists you make should all of those things are not created equal. Not every rebound is created the same. And
well, I think some analytics people would argue with you that 2 points in the first quarter is the same as 2 points in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
But what I will say this is I agree with that. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily about when he's scoring the points. I think it's about how he's scoring the points and the way that his offense is very. It's almost like everyone has to just kind of stand back and watch, and that's not really winning basketball anymore. That's why I guess that he got caught in the wrong era. That was winning basketball in 1992. That was winning basketball in the late 80s. That's not really winning basketball anymore. And you can't just be a guy who holds the ball for 40% of the time and then shoot 42% from the field. Like, that's just not – I'm not sure what his field goal percentage is this year, but I threw that out there because I'm sure it's somewhere around there.
It's about 44%.
Okay, it's 44%. You can't be a guy who holds the ball as much as he does and shoot 44% from the field. You're not making your team better by doing that. And in fact, what's happening is you're just kind of sucking the life out of the offense by just you holding the ball. But my point is, you can be a good player. That's why there's a difference between a guy like Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller. Even though Reggie Miller was clutch and did hit big shots, he was a great player who didn't win much. There's a difference in this. There's still room to be a great player who doesn't win much. And I think we lost sight of that you can still be great even if your team didn't win that much.
And that's true. I think that, because his coach said that Russell Westbrook is the second best point guard of all time, behind Magic Johnson, which, I mean, it's his coach. Yeah. Right. I mean, he kind of has to say that, but I just want to reel off some names here. Okay. These are guys that are also on the hierarchy of triple doubles.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to know which of these guys you would rather have over Russell Westbrook. Because I'm reading through the first 20. and there's, well, let's see. I've counted maybe 3 guys that I would rather Russell Westbrook over. Barring there's 2 names that I don't recognize, but that's whatever.
Okay.
So Russell Westbrook number 1, Oscar Robertson. We'll take him out because it's Magic. It should be obvious.
Yeah.
Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd. That's easy.
I agree 100%. He has 107 triple doubles. LeBron James, obvious. Will Chamberlain, different era, but seems obvious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Larry Bird.
Obvious.
Then we get to James Harden, who's 8th on the list with 58 triple doubles.
I think I prefer James Harden, but that's close.
Me too. Nikola Jokic is 9th all time with 56 already, which is crazy.
Well, I'm gonna say that at this point, I think I would prefer Nikola Jokic, but it's close. That's a tie. That might be a push. I'm not sure.
But it does feel like especially with Jokic, it feels like Jokic's triple doubles help his team, where it feels like Westbrook's doesn't. Yeah. And it's just speaking predominantly from just the eye test, honestly.
Yeah, that's really where it boils down to. It feels more smooth. Jokic is not forcing anything. He's letting the offense come to him, and guys are just cutting and getting open shots. And it feels like Westbrook is just kind of...
He's forcing it.
Yeah, forcing it, yep.
There's a guy on here, Fat Lever is the guy's name. I don't know who that is.
I don't know that player.
11th all-time is Luka Doncic, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I actually think they're pretty similar players, honestly.
I would take Luka all day and twice on Sunday. No chance.
I don't know what Luka's defensive numbers are or what his field goal percentage is. I feel like they're probably pretty similar players. Just when I watch them, they're very similar to me.
Yeah.
But I think I'd take Westbrook there.
12th, Bob Cousy. I mean, different eras, so it's hard to...
Yeah, I think I would take Westbrook there too, but, different eras.
It's hard to compare those guys. But the next 2 are modern-day players, Ben Simmons and Rajon Rondo.
Well, you definitely take Westbrook over those 2 players, I think.
Over Rondo, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can be the 4th best player on a championship team. I mean, come on.
Well, J.R. Smith couldn't.
Yeah, fair enough. J.R. Smith couldn't. But, there's no way, if let's just, what I like to do is just, if you remove Rajon Rondo from the Celtics and instead of him coming off the bench or him being the starting point guard, it was Russell Westbrook, I think they still win.
Probably. But, yeah, so the list goes on. But in terms of pure point guards, Allen Iverson and Russell Westbrook.
I like Allen Iverson better.
Yes, you can't. There's impossible not to take Allen Iverson.
Well, I will say this. Look, in fairness, just to be fair to Russell Westbrook here, Allen Iverson has all the same flaws that Russell Westbrook has. Inefficient, kind of plays in an offense that was, he was. The one difference is that Iverson was always the only player. There was never really another good player.
Yes, and Iverson took up a team that is significantly worse than the Washington team that Russell Westbrook is on right now.
I just wonder how Allen Iverson's game would be celebrated in today's NBA. It feels like Allen Iverson is the perfect, kind of like the picture of what basketball used to be. And is not like that anymore. Efficiency is so important now. Where a guy like Allen Iverson, I'm not sure if we would be looking at him the same way if his career started, let's say 5 years ago, and he was, had the same exact career.
I mean, I think with the dissolution of the hand check, I mean, I think in today's game, especially with no big men clogging up the middle, I think Iverson would have just been. I mean, he might have been a lot. He took so many shots. I mean, that's the thing. Is just it's hard to knock him, but he took shots because there was no one else to make a shot, and that's
I definitely take Iverson over just based on the eye test. Just having watched both players throughout their entire careers, there's no question in my mind that Iverson is a better offensive player, and it's not really close, honestly. But
yeah, I agree, and I think his shooting would have improved now because you have to remember it's since. Steph Curry. I mean, that's not even close. I guess he's.
Yeah, that's no. Of course,
but since the advent of the 3-point proliferation, I guess you could say, it's a different game. Like people train differently, they practice differently, and it's a different world. And I could see Iverson playing, he wouldn't be as good a shooter, but I can see him being sort of the closest person that comes to mind is Damian Lillard to what I think Iverson was like. Dame's a much better shooter, but I think in terms of tenacity and aggressiveness and just sheer force of will, being an undersized player, I think that he is the closest parallel to a modern day Allen Iverson.
I think I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
So, point being, Westbrook, while I think that he should be celebrated for his career achievement, and it feels a little hollow, is all I'm saying. That's the problem I have with it. It's hard to say beyond that. But in terms of NBA, we can jump right into it because I was going to take a break, but we have a little bit of NBA talk to get to. So we'll
make it quick.
Yeah, as on the heels of the Russell Westbrook talk, I figure it just translates nicely into the around the NBA that we were planning on doing next anyway. So just some updated NBA news. The Celtics, Jaylen Brown, out for the season with a torn ligament in his wrist. Does that matter at this point for the Celtics, do you think?
No, it's a terrible blow, but they were already basically looking bad for this postseason, and now they're definitely first-round fodder if they even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like this has just been a lost season for the Celtics overall, and it's a shame because they seem like they were so poised to just take that next step after making it to the conference finals last year.
Just can't take things for granted in the NBA.
Yeah. They're seventh in the East right now, so that's probably going to trickle down a bit more after that. Sixers, Nets, Bucks, Jazz, Suns, Clippers, and Nuggets have all clinched playoff spots. Which of those are you most confident about, and which of those are you least confident about? So Sixers, Nets, Bucks, Jazz, Suns, Clippers, and Nuggets.
Well, most confident is probably the Nets. They just once they're back, if they go into the Eastern Conference playoffs at full strength, they're prohibitive favorites to me to go to the postseason. And the team I'm most worried about would be the Suns, although I'm really happy for them. This will dovetail with our next point. They are probably going to end up playing either the Lakers or the Warriors. If everything stays as is, they're most likely going to play the Lakers or the Warriors in the first round.
Yeah.
I would not be happy about that if I were.
You don't want to play either one of those guys, yeah.
No, you don't.
That's a bad opening round poll.
Yeah.
No. I would agree. I mean, the Nets, if the Nets are healthy, they are easily the most dangerous team in the league, I think.
Yeah.
And my least confident is actually the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's only, I guess, because I'm just worried for Giannis's sake. I feel like his another early exit from the playoffs is just going to be devastating for his career and how people view him. And it's not fair, but I think that they need to really make a statement this year, and it's going to be really hard, especially, just getting out of the East between the Sixers and the Nets above them. That's not going to be easy to do.
And the Sixers are much improved this year. People cannot sleep on them.
And with Joel Embiid, I mean, he can match up with Giannis. I mean, Giannis is still, I think, more athletic overall, but Embiid's nothing. He's not easy to get around either.
Absolutely.
So it's not good. It's not good. So Lakers and Warriors, like you just mentioned, Lakers and Warriors clinging 7th and 8th seed. LeBron coming back yet again. Yeah. And, of those two, I don't know who the tougher out is going to be because, the Lakers are the defending champs, but Steph is just he could drop 50 on you before you even realize what's happening.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that they're going to play each other in the first. Like, if everything stays as is, they're going to play each other in the first round of the play-in. So it would be LeBron versus the Warriors, or I shouldn't say LeBron, the Lakers versus the Warriors. And yeah, I think I would probably side with the Lakers because it seems like they have more firepower as a team.
Yeah.
But, man.
With Anthony Davis back, yeah. I mean, if they have Anthony Davis, I think that he's kind of an X factor.
He just dropped 40 a couple days ago. Like, he's been playing better.
Yeah. And it does beg the question, though, that how good could the Warriors be right now? What would these standings look like if Klay Thompson had not gotten injured? It's just, it's incredible that Steph is doing what he's doing, and he could be MVP. I think that he deserves at least a strong possibility to think about. I think that Jokic is going to win it.
Yeah.
But I think Steph should be given a lot more consideration than I think he's been given.
Steph should probably be in the discussion for top 3. I think it should be Jokic, then Embiid. And then after that, I mean, I feel like, why not Steph? Why wouldn't Steph be third place there? Or maybe James Harden? I don't know. But I think Steph would probably deserve more credit. Yeah.
No, I agree. Okay. So that'll do it. That's around the NBA. We'll just get it in, get your fix in. So the playoffs are coming up, and that's going to spur on a lot more conversation, a lot more excitement. So look forward to that. We're going to take a break now. Better late than never. And we're going to come back, and we're going to switch gears. We're going to go over to the NFL. We have to talk about our website spotlight this week, and then we have to play our favorite offseason. Well, it's the offseason edition of our favorite game, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break. So lots of NFL talk coming up. So stick around. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I'm still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. A lot of fun thus far. You can go back and listen to the first hour where we talked all sorts of sports news. Tim Tebow, Eric Fisher signs with the Colts. We gave a little send-off to Kenny Mayne, Russell Westbrook. We got into some interesting debate about Russell Westbrook and his achievements breaking Oscar Robertson's career record for triple-doubles. You can find that at pretty much anywhere you get podcasts, iHeartRadio podcasting, Amazon podcasts. You can follow us along on social media. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or you can go to thebenchwarmers.com for everything Benchwarmers. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. Shortly, in just a moment, we're going to be playing Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, which is the off-season addition to our favorite NFL game that we do here. But first, speaking of thebenchwarmers.com, Jose, this week your article posted, and it has to do with the NFL, and it's a review on because we talked a little about kind of revisionist draft grades, because it seems like after every NFL draft, we just obviously just had one, there seems to be this rush to say, well, it was a good draft, it was a bad draft, and you took this to the next level by looking back several years to the 2016 draft.
Yeah, well, I think 5 years is a pretty good length of time. You might be able to do it in 3 years too, but 5 years is a pretty good stretch of time to really evaluate a draft and see how things played out. And I mean, I think the 2016 draft was very interesting. You know, you're going to look at Jared Goff and Carson Wentz at the top of the draft, but honestly, it was a pretty good draft in the sense where, like, Joey Bosa went third, Ezekiel Elliott went fourth, Jalen Ramsey fifth, Ronnie Stanley sixth, DeForest Buckner seventh. Like, that's a solid stretch of all-pro and Pro Bowl players to be selected. I basically broke it down into good, bad, and ugly picks. Yeah. One of what I found most interesting about this, and let's see, let me know when you were reading it if you have the same thought. Just an interesting exercise to kind of show the difference between what we know versus what we thought we knew. Yeah. Now, early this offseason, it was reported that the Bears offered the Seahawks 3 first-round picks and 2 starting players for Russell Wilson, which the Seahawks turned down. And a lot of people were like, why would the Seahawks turn down 3 first-round picks? Oh, my goodness, you can't turn down that type of value. This is why. In this amazing draft, this incredible draft where 13% of the players made the Pro Bowl, that means it's like, was it almost 90% of them?
87%.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my math was 87% were just average or worse. And if you look at the players selected in the first round, only 12 of the only 12 first-round players became Pro Bowlers, and of those, only 4 were drafted outside of the top 10. So why am I giving up a known top 5 player at that position for what will most likely turn into 3 average NFL players? And that's what I took away when I'm looking at this draft. It's just like, it just feels like draft picks are made out to be so much more valuable than they actually are sometimes. They're valuable in the sense that you get to save money, but they're not valuable in the sense that most of the time they suck. And that's really what it boils down to, especially at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting about this is, it's again, not only, I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020, but I think it goes to show just how irrational people can be, or how much of as much of a science as we like to think, things like this are, that it's almost more of an art. Because you look at a guy, and I look at a guy like, there's 2 guys within 2 picks of each other that you highlighted. Derrick Henry was picked 45th overall by the Tennessee Titans, and Michael Thomas was picked 47th overall by the New Orleans Saints. And it just makes you wonder. You look at Derrick Henry, who is 6'3", 250. Like what did everybody miss? Like, yeah, he ran a 4.5 40 at 245 pounds. That's like, you have to kind of put that into context. Michael Thomas broke Marvin Harrison's single season reception record. It's there's so many intangible things, like a person's drive, that just seem to go unnoticed or uncharacterized. And sometimes that's the most important thing. Tyreek Hill, you rightly so, 165th pick overall. And Tyreek Hill, he had some off the field issues, I think, in college. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had some on the, also in the NFL, but overall, I think that's a pretty good deal for the Chiefs. Yeah, with 5 consecutive Pro Bowls, he was a 3-time All-Pro, and also happens to be the fastest player in the NFL.
And that's why they're so good, because they hit on a player like that in the 5th round. That's what gets you the value. Not when you hit on a 1st-round pick. Congratulations, you hit on a pick that everyone said you should have hit on. Hitting on a 5th-round pick is where you start. That's why we look at the Cowboys in this draft, and I know you're not a huge fan of Dak Prescott, but to get Dak Prescott in the 4th round. I mean, you could argue he's the best quarterback to come out of this draft. You could make a strong argument that he's the best quarterback to come out of the draft.
At least in terms of value, 100%.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, and then you look at, and then the other thing I took away from it is you look at the players. There's Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Trey Lance and Mac Jones. They all went in the 1st round. Most likely, only at most 2 of these players are going to end up even at Jared Goff's level. Yeah, that's what we're looking at when you draft these quarterbacks in the 1st round. You will be lucky. We will be lucky. It will be unlikely that more than 2 players end up being better than Jared Goff. Why does Andy Dalton end up in the NFL starting for 10 years? Because it's hard to succeed in the NFL. And I think that's what I've really learned. It's really hard to succeed in the NFL.
And I think a part of it too, and this is, I mean, we talk about this a lot, especially at draft time. It's all about perspective, because Alex Smith is the perfect example. Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers are the perfect examples of what I'm talking about. Alex Smith was chosen number 1 overall in the 2005 draft. Aaron Rodgers was chosen 31st or something, so all the way at the bottom of the 1st round. And had those 2 picks been flip-flopped, I think our perspective and our viewpoint of those players will be much different, because Alex Smith had by all measurements had a pretty productive NFL career. He's only considered to be sort of a bust when you say, okay, well, he was the number 1 pick and he did not live up to expectations. Jared Goff, same thing. He was not bad. He's not been bad. He's just not been what we want our number 1 overall pick to be. The same thing. And Carson Wentz. The Eagles traded up. They mortgaged their entire future to trade up to number 2 to get Carson Wentz. If they had gotten Carson, I don't know who else was arguing for Carson Wentz. If they had gotten him, late in the 1st round or early 2nd round, no one would be saying anything. And that's what makes Dak Prescott made Dak Prescott so valuable, is that he's a 4th round pick. For a 4th round pick, he's been unbelievable. If Dak Prescott had been chosen in the first round, we would not be as enthralled and enamored with him as we are now. It's all perspective.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Yeah, you'll really enjoy it. It's a nice trip down memory lane just to look at some of the names that have really come out. We don't want to go through every single name on the list, but it's a nice trip down memory lane to just look at some of the good picks, some of the bad. There were a lot of good picks in this draft, but some of the bad. There were also some bad picks and some ugly picks. And
I liked how you broke it up very nicely. You separated it, made it very easy to read, and you kind of gave a good summation at the end of very, 3 main points that we learned kind of collectively from that draft. So that's very well done. It's so go to the benchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z. You can see that. It's our feature article this week. And it's definitely worth taking a look at. With that being said, we're going to move on to the last segment of the show, which is we save the best for last. Make no mistake or give me a break. We play this almost weekly during the NFL season. It's basically our version of true false. I'm going to make some statements, and Jose's going to agree or disagree. Jose's going to make some statements, and I will respond with either make no mistake, absolutely, or give me a break, that's ridiculous. No. So, Jose, would you like to kick or receive?
I'll kick. I'll get this thing started with.
Okay.
The Rams are the greatest threat to the Bucks in the NFC. Make no mistake or give me a break.
I am going to say give me a break. And I think that it's close. It's very close, but I think that, I think the Seahawks are still there just by virtue of Russell Wilson being Russell Wilson. And it's sneaky, but I do think that your San Francisco 49ers, if they can finally stay healthy, again, the last time they were all healthy, they made the Super Bowl. Yeah. So now if Trey Lance can be, I don't think that he's going to start the year, but if he can make some kind of impact later in the season and the rest of that team is healthy, I think that they could be very dangerous in the NFC too.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say make no mistake. I as much as I believe in the 49ers, as much as I like the Seahawks, I feel like the Seahawks didn't really do much to get better this year. Mm-hmm. I look at the Rams as a team that already had a great defense, had some pretty good offensive weapons, and then they went and upgraded the quarterback position, at least what I consider to be an upgrade from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. I suppose we'll see. Yeah.
The only thing with that is that because I think you're right. I'm just kind of grading on a curve because I wonder how quickly Matt Stafford's going to be able to adjust to a new system after being in Detroit for over a decade. It's just, not everybody can be Tom Brady,
Yeah, no, and I don't, and let's be clear. I think there's a big gap between the Bucks, or a clear gap between the Bucks and anyone else in the NFC. Like, there's not a team that's close to me right now. When I look at the Rams, I feel like they have all the pieces in place.
Yep.
So if they were to be able to, you're right. In the beginning of the season, just like it was for the Bucks last year, if you remember, in the beginning of the season, it didn't go all smooth sailing, and it took some time to learn. I wouldn't be surprised if we look up and the Rams are, 3-4 or 4-4, like kind of flirting with 500 early in the season, and then kind of go on a run at the end.
Yeah.
Finish off 10-6, 11-5, sneak into the playoffs, and the problem for a team. I do think the 49ers have a good chance as well. It's just the uncertainty with Trey Lance. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be the quarterback? Can the 49ers finally stay healthy this year? There's a lot of question marks. I just feel that there's not as many question marks for the Rams, and it's just Matthew Stafford. And I feel like he's probably going to answer the question right. So I think he's a good. How could he not be an upgrade over Jared Goff? How would that even be possible?
Well, I think after this season, with a full season, in a new system, I think that I think the answer to the question is absolutely make no mistake. But this season, and especially with, the continuity aspect of things is why I kind of think the Seahawks still get the nod. And it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the 49ers fan, but it seems like Kyle Shanahan has the Rams number. I feel like every time they play, the Niners, no matter who they're playing with, end up beating the Rams, even though the Rams on paper are a much better team.
I'd have to look back and forth. I don't get that feeling. I feel like the 49ers, like every team in that division has every team's number. It just feels like anytime you think you're going to go on a winning streak, we're going to play Arizona. Who cares? They're trash. Arizona blows you out. It's just you have 4 really good teams in that division. And I think the answer to the question is probably the NFC West is the greatest threat to the Bucks in the NFC.
Yeah.
Because it just one of those 4, I think all 4 of those teams actually probably make the playoffs because there's 3 wild card teams that get in. So there'll be a division winner and then there'll be 3. I think you could still, in theory, have all 3 of those teams get into the playoffs. Because if you look at the other teams, who's challenging those 3 for a wild card berth?
Yeah, you're right.
Number 2.
Yep.
The Patriots are a playoff team.
I'm going to say give me a break. I don't think – I also have a make no mistake or give me a break that revolves around the Patriots, by the way. To answer your question, I am going to say give me a break. I don't think that the Patriots are in a position to be a playoff team. I don't think that they're – I don't even think they're the second best team in their own division. I think that they're going to be the third. Cam Newton, I think, is not the answer. He's a good bridge to see what Mac Jones is going to be. But overall, I mean, they added Nelson Aguilar. I mean, who did they really – what – they lost Julian Edelman. So what did they really – what's their net gain from last season to this season that's going to change things that dramatically?
I'm going to say give me a break. I agree with you. I thought it was more of an interesting question because they did add Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry at the tight end position.
Oh, I forgot about Hunter Henry.
That may help out. They had Nelson Aguilar. Who was the other? And Kendrick Bourne owes half his paycheck to Kyle Shanahan. But they drafted Ramondre Stevenson, who I think is a decent running back. They still have Gilmore at corner. They still have some pieces on the defense, but I think there's just too many good teams in the AFC, honestly, and it's really what it boils down to. The Patriots will be competitive, but they won't win enough games. So yeah, I agree. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Number 3, the Giants are the best team in the NFC East.
Oh, give me a break. Now,
Okay.
maybe on paper they're the most talented, but I might give to the Cowboys. I honestly think, the Washington football team, I hate to say it, because I don't really like them very much, but they seem like they're the most, and I can't believe I'm saying this, they seem like they're the most stable organization in the NFC East right now. Ron Rivera's done an amazing job. Their quarterbacking situation is still kind of a little shaky. They have, Taylor Heineke looked pretty good at the end of last year. And the Giants, I haven't bought into Daniel Jones yet. And Saquon Barkley, we need to see him be healthy. And then they signed Kenny Golladay, but he is also injury prone. So it's just, I feel like that it's a house of cards, and I'm not buying into it just yet.
I'm going to say give me a break as well. I think they are, it's just funny, when I was looking at this, I completely forgot about the Washington football team. Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be the starting quarterback there this year, and then they've got some weapons. I think the Cowboys are the best team in the division, so I'm going to say give me a break. But I really wouldn't be surprised if the Giants make a run this year. And we talk a lot about the season that Justin Herbert just had, which I think was like 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in 15 games started. Daniel Jones in his rookie year in 12 games started, 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. So it's not like, and then the last year was just a disaster, but they kind of lost all their players last year, and it's not that Daniel Jones is a bad, at least we haven't seen for sure that he's a bad player.
Yeah.
I still think the Cowboys is the Cowboys division to win, though the Washington football team is very interesting. My last one, the Chargers are a playoff team.
I'm going to say make no mistake, although it's tentative because that division is not easy. The Raiders are the wild card there. The Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs barring injury. But the Chargers, they have the talent. And like you just said, Justin Herbert, had an amazing rookie year. So if he can follow that up with at least a similar sophomore season, I think that the Chargers with a new coach are going to be very dangerous.
Yeah, I'm going to say make no mistake as well. I think this team stays healthy and it's probably one of the teams that have the biggest jump this offseason, or this regular season. I'm a little weary though, just because we saw Baker Mayfield have the great rookie year and then fall off in year 2. We saw Daniel Jones have the great rookie year, fall off in year 2. We kind of saw Lamar Jackson have a great, not rookie year, but a great first year per se when he was a starter for the whole time, and then kind of fall off last year. What adjustment? What is Justin Herbert's counter move after the defenses adjust this offseason? We're going to see.
Yep, I agree. All right, so my make no mistake or give me a break. Let's see. My first one. Aaron Rodgers will be the opening day starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers in 2021.
Man, as much as I want to say make no mistake, I feel like just based on everything I'm hearing and reading, I have to say give me a break. I think he might retire because I don't see any way they're trading him. I think he might retire, so I'm going to say give me a break. It just feels like it's irreconcilable, whatever's happening between them.
It seems like the Broncos keep coming up more and more because it seems like that if you look at even what the Packers did with Brett Favre, they traded him to the AFC, to the Jets, and then he eventually came back to haunt them on the Vikings. But it seems like they wouldn't trade Aaron Rodgers to a team that they'd have to face at least, in the NFC. Mm-hmm. So the Broncos keep coming up, but I'm gonna say make no mistake because it feels like he's gonna struggle through this season, not necessarily literally, but maybe mentally or figuratively, and deal with it. Because after this year, it seems like I think his contract is up, and they haven't restructured anything, they haven't extended anything. So it's a lot less of a casualty if they let him go after this next season. And I think, truthfully, it also is contingent on Jordan. I mean, Jordan Love was the third string quarterback this last year, so. If they don't know what they have in him yet, it's going to be hard. You're going to be hard pressed to sell that to the fans. Where it's like, yeah, well, I know he threw 48 touchdowns, but he's kind of a pain in the ass. So we're gonna want to this guy that we know nothing about. I don't see it happening.
If they're going to let him walk, then they better just trade him for anything. And I'm back on your side on I think there's a couple times where we were texting and we were saying like you may as well get something for him rather than just have him sit on your bench. My thought is like, okay, well, if you don't want to play, you retire. But if it's going to be that they cut him at the end of the year, no, you got to trade him and get something for him.
Yeah, and I mean, you could still. I mean, I asked you this over the course of the week. You're a 49ers fan. I said, would you have traded everything that the 49ers gave up to go get Trey Lance, including that third overall pick this season for Aaron Rodgers, knowing full well that you would only get maybe 2 more full seasons out of him?
Absolutely, I would make the trade. No question.
No hesitation whatsoever. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So
honestly, if it was 1 year, if you have a chance to win the Super Bowl, you have to go for it because they don't cut unless you're the Patriots with Tom Brady. These opportunities do not come up very often. Just ask Drew Brees.
Yeah,
or Aaron Rodgers for that matter.
Let's see. So, all right, my next one. Mac Jones will be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots before Week 6.
Yeah, I'm going to say make no mistake. I think I'm surprised that Cam Newton even stayed on the team, to be honest with you. But
I agree.
I'm going to say make no mistake. They're probably going to be something like, I don't know what their opening season schedule is, but it can't be good. So I'm going to say they could be like 2-4, 1-5. Something like that through Week 6, and it's just gonna be like, why are we even starting Cam Newton anymore? Let's just get Mac Jones out there and see what he can do.
Yeah, I agree. Cam Newton did not have a very good 2020. Granted COVID, and it's his first season in a Bill Belichick offense. He was 66% completion percentage rate, 2,600 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He did rush for a whole bunch, but overall, not a very good season from a quarterbacking standpoint. And I think Bill Belichick, being Bill Belichick, he wants that rookie deal. That's where he can wheel and deal, and he has all this freedom to kind of play his little stock market game with, buy low, sell high with all these, players that he likes to bring in. And I think Mac Jones is going to be the conduit to that next, or at least the chance to be that next great team. And he'll want to see what he has sooner than later. So I'm going to say make no mistake. All right. Next one. Of all the division winners last year, Seahawks, Saints, Washington football team, Packers, Titans, Bills, Steelers, and Chiefs, the Titans will take the biggest step back this year. So let me read that again.
Yeah, read it again.
Of
please.
all the division winners last year, the Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints, Washington football team, Green Bay Packers, Tennessee Titans, Buffalo Bills, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Kansas City Chiefs, the Titans will take the biggest step back this year. And just for context, Seattle was 12-4, New Orleans was 12-4, Washington was 7-9, Packers were 13-3, Titans were 11-5, Bills were 13-3, Steelers were 12-4, and the Chiefs were 14-2.
So I'm gonna say, give me a break on this, because I think that the answer is probably the Saints. I can't. It's hard to approximate the value of what Drew Brees meant to the team last year. He did have a pretty solid season, but it wasn't spectacular Drew Brees type season. If Jameis Winston, we've seen Jameis Winston as a starting quarterback. Maybe he's been fixed as in a year on the bench. I don't know. And Taysom Hill, I've never been overly impressed with him as a quarterback. So to me, it's the Saints who are going to take the biggest step back.
Yeah, I'm going to say make no mistake with the Titans. I think that, while everything you just said about the Saints is absolutely true, the Titans are in a division now with the Colts, who are, in my eyes, a Super Bowl contender if all goes well. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are not going to be 1-15 again. They have a new coach. They have a much better, much improved quarterback. And the only kind of pushover team is going to be the Houston Texans. So I think just that alone is going to cause the Titans to be they're going to be challenged a lot more than they have been in recent years. So I expect them to take a step back.
Okay.
Finally, sort of the inverse of that, of all the division losers. So that's the Falcons, the Eagles, the Lions, the Jags, the Jets, the Bengals, and the Broncos. The Falcons will take the biggest step up. So it's sort of the opposite. So of all the division losers, Falcons, Eagles, Lions, Jags, Jets, Bengals, Broncos, the Falcons will take the biggest step up from last year.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm going to say make no mistake. That feels right. It feels like the Falcons are in position to maybe finish in second place in that division behind the Bucs and challenge for a playoff spot. The only other teams that I would even consider there, you mentioned the Bengals. I think that there's a chance they just drafted Jamar Chase, assuming Joe Burrow is back and healthy. They have something going on there that maybe they could get something going. And the Broncos, listen, if they trade for Aaron Rodgers, you would imagine they're going to get better. So they would be a kind of a dark horse team. But as things are right now, I think it's the Falcons. I'll make no mistake.
Yeah, I agree. The Falcons, to me, are the ones they don't have any glaring Achilles heel. I mean, the Eagles have a brand new, unheard of coach, and they were a train wreck. It seems like there's a lot of organizational dysfunction there, so that's never a good sign. The Lions are the Lions. Until otherwise, they're just going to be kind of on the bottom end. The Jags, as aforementioned, I think that they are going to be much better, but they are still in kind of a tough division. The Bengals, same thing. I agree. I think Jamar Chase is going to make a big difference. I think Joe Burrow in his sophomore year is going to come out swinging, but it's a hard division to be in. That's a real hard division. And the Broncos, unless something changes, I don't expect them to be competitive, really. I mean, I think that they're going to be a tough defensive out, but offensively they're non-existent without a better quarterback. So the Falcons, they were 4-12 last year, and so many of those games, I forget how many there was just a lot of them were so many one-possession games that it just, with that combined with, like you said, the New Orleans Saints taking a step back, it feels like that they're poised, with the addition of Kyle Pitts in the draft to just be a juggernaut offensively, and maybe they just win a few more shootouts.
And the thing about the Falcons that we have to remember is the last few years, it just feels like their defense has been hurt a lot.
It's been bad, yeah.
It's like I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just bad luck or bad training staff. I don't know what to blame, but they haven't been able to stay healthy on defense, which has really obviously hurt the team overall. So maybe this is the year they kind of stay healthy for a few, very similar to the Chargers, honestly, where they just need to stay healthy on defense, and the offense will take care of the rest.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Yeah, so that's it. Make no mistake or give me a break. We should bring this back more often. It's just a fun game. I enjoy it. It's a good time. It's a way to kind of just throw our crazy conspiracy theories out there and see if we can get them to stick.
Well, maybe we'll do part 2 next week. Yeah. There's a lot of off-season stuff to talk about.
True, yeah. So, all right. So, yeah, you can follow us along and go back and listen to our Make No Mistake or Give Me a Breaks from last season. You can iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go check out thebenchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes, all kinds of fun content, and you can see what we actually look like. I don't know if that's good or bad, but you can check us out. And so, yeah, we're going to keep doing this for some time to come. So stick around and pay attention to that. This has been season 2. This is episode 4. And yeah, that's going to do it. So for Jose Ortiz, I'm Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.